In the beginning, earth cools. Vapor turns to ocean. The surface simmers with mystery. You've arrived in a time with no names, only heat and silence. Above volcanic skies, the world churns. The air is thick, the ground angry. But deep in the dark, water listens. This isn't the earth you know. It's wild, young, molten. A planet wrapped in fire, dreaming of form. The sky glows copper and charcoal. The sun flickers like an old memory, distant and watching. Mountains roar into life. Lava spills across emptiness, writing the land where forests, cities, and futures will someday grow. And then, the first drop, a sigh from the sky. Steam condenses, rain falls, not gentle, but fierce. Like the first heartbeat of a sleeping giant, rain becomes rivers. Rivers become seas. Seas swell into oceans. You witness the moment water claims the world. This isn't a calm beginning. The oceans are hot, boiling, stirred by ash and molten blood, and yet within the chaos, something stirs. Not breath, not life, but possibility. Drift above the newborn seas. No fish, no sound, no wings, only steam, only shifting plates, only a cradle waiting for a story. Hydrogen from stars, oxygen from rocks, carbon everywhere. Here, lightning dances above while vents breathe below, and still no life. But patterns begin to whisper. Loops, spirals, energy sliding through silence like fingers through silk. Come closer. Beneath the surface, cracks open, hydrothermal vents. Heat spills, chemicals rise. Not death, but invitation. Chimneys of minerals reach like fingers. Between them, the soup thickens. No eyes, no heartbeats, just chemistry growing bold. Molecules fold, twist, link. No dancers, but still a dance. Life doesn't start with a roar. It begins with a ripple, a moment of miracle. One shape copies itself. Fragile, clumsy, entirely real. And from that, everything. The earth cools. The sky softens. The oceans cradle their secrets. You float above the hush. No cities, no songs, only waiting. Far below, in the salt and silence, the first cells dream. Not of wings or minds, but of surviving, of remaking. This is the start, not loud, not urgent, but patient, like breath held for 1 billion years. Rest here, voyager. Let the warmth of ancient oceans hold you. Let the vents rock you. Let the quiet be your guide. For in the next chapter, something will stir, something will breathe, and the long silence will give way to light. You close your eyes, and the dark grows deeper. Not an emptiness, but a fullness, rich and humming. This is not the kind of dark that frightens. It is the kind that cradles, the kind that listens. And beneath it, a world waits. You drift now, slowly, downward, past the steaming surface of a young ocean, past currents thick with minerals, past the hiss of vents and the lull of tectonic sighs, down into the depths where no sun has ever reached. There is no light here, no need for it. Instead, the heat of the earth seeps upward through chimneys of stone that exhale chemical breath. These are hydrothermal vents, Earth's lungs beneath, the sea. They glow not with fire, but with warmth, a low, steady pulse. And here, in this undersea dusk, life blooms. You are drifting beside the first of them, tiny single-celled beings. so small 1,000 could sit on the tip of your eyelash. They cling to rocks like whispers. They gather in soft colonies, delicate as breath. And they live not from sunlight, but from chemistry. They take in hydrogen sulfide, a poison to you, a feast to them. They turn this into energy, into life. This process is called chemosynthesis, the first metabolism. Not with leaves, not with light, but with minerals and patience. They don't know joy, they don't know fear, but they persist. They replicate. And that's enough to turn the first page of life. Some begin to move, waving tiny hairs like oars. Others begin to cluster. Together, they are stronger. Time has no hurry. Millions of years pass like dreams. You drift closer. You feel it, not noise, not voice, but a hum, a rhythm of life breathing through water. No fish, no bones, just cells. Dancing with elements, changing the sea, the rocks, the future air. Even without light there is knowing. Even without eyes there is wonder. The sea is memory now. You are not watching the story. You are floating in it. Let it carry you. Above sunlight waits, but not yet. Tonight you rest in the quiet dark. Among the unseen beginnings. Breathe. Slowly, let your body remember, even in the deep, life finds a way to bloom. Close your eyes. You are drifting again gently, slowly, like a leaf on still water. The darkness still holds you, but something stirs. A shimmer, a whisper just beyond the edge of silence. You float through oceans that no longer sleep entirely. In shadow, far above, light has found its way. It pierces the water in golden beams, soft as memory, distant as a dream. And below, life begins to notice. Not all life, not most, just a few tiny pioneers, cyanobacteria. They do not see the light, but they feel it, and more importantly, they use it. Photosynthesis, to make with light. They turn sunlight, water, and carbon dioxide into food, and into something else, oxygen. At first, it's harmless, just a breath, a byproduct. But oxygen is not gentle. It reacts, it changes, it spreads. In oceans rich with iron, oxygen binds like fire to fuel. Rust falls to the seafloor. These ancient red bands in rock are the fingerprints of rebellion. Oxygen rises, it seeps upward, molecule by molecule. The sky, once thick with methane and ammonia, begins to change. It doesn't happen fast, but over millennia, blue emerges, pale, fragile, like dawn spreading across stone. You imagine breathing here. It still isn't safe, but something new is mixing in the air. Possibility, this gift, comes with pain. Anaerobes, those who thrived without oxygen, begin to vanish. Entire kingdoms dissolve in silence. But others, they adapt, they evolve. Above you, the sky softens. The ozone layer begins to form, a shield for futures yet to crawl from the sea. You are still drifting, in a world of water, silence, and slow transformation. The breath of earth is deepening. The stage is nearly set. You are floating in the breath before the song, and the next note will be multicellular. You float now in oceans that breathe. The surface is wild, but down here something ancient stirs, not with noise, but with quiet exhalations. Cyanobacteria gather light and spin it into sugar. They breathe out oxygen, not as a gift, but simply as part of living. Oxygen trickles in, molecule by molecule. It bonds with iron, turning the oceans red, like rust in the veins of a sleeping world. The iron runs out, but the breath continues. Now oxygen floats free, rising slowly, invisibly, toward the sky. This isn't thunder, it's patience, it's persistence, in and out, in and out. Most ancient life can't survive this new air. Oxygen is too reactive, too eager. For some, it's poison, but others adapt. They burn brighter, they grow more complex. These are the ancestors of every plant, every animal. And eventually you, the earth cools, methane fades, glaciers grow, a snowball planet is born, all because of a breath. Volcanoes breathe heat, carbon dioxide returns, the ice melts, and oxygen rises again. You look up, the sky is no longer murky. It is blue, fragile, soft, full of future, inlaid. Seas, life becomes layered too. Cells specialize, they merge. Early eukaryotes appear, the beginning of complexity. You feel it inside you. Every breath you take is a thread to these waters, a song written in your blood. Earth now inhales, through photosynthesis, and exhales, through fire, decay, and breath. This is sacred work, the birth of atmosphere. Breath makes motion possible, and now life begins to wonder, what if we had form? What if we could move? What if we could become more? Let's drift closer. The waters shimmer now, with new possibility. You drift among gentle shapes that pulse together, not one cell, but many. Once, life was alone. Now, some cells stay. They do not scatter. They begin to share. You float near one cluster, a mosaic in motion. One cell absorbs, another swims, a third holds them close. Together they survive. They don't speak, they just understand. Together we can be more. It begins slowly, but over time this teamwork becomes a rhythm, a soft pulse in the ocean. They have no bones, no eyes, no names, but they are new, and they are many. Each cell a note, together a song. They move through oxygen-rich waters now, breathing as one. Some sense warmth, others pull in food. They react, respond, adapt. One cell becomes skin, another becomes muscle, another a mouth. This is structure, this is story, written in cells, passed forward in time. You are not one life. You are many lives made one, and it started here. You drift deeper, shapes grow larger, some stretch, fold, create cavities, places for food, for hiding, for something like stomachs. This is the age of the Ediacarans. Imagine one, wide as your arms, thin as cloth, glowing faintly on the seafloor. No eyes, no bones, only feeling. Some begin to move slowly, like ripples becoming waves. Movement is a promise to explore, to reach, to change. Cells begin to feel pressure, heat, light. This is the whisper of nerves, the beginning of awareness. They won't all survive, most will fade, but what they gave remains, the blueprint of body, the idea of more. This chapter is quiet, gentle, but radical. Life, once alone, now walks in company, and somewhere in this tide of new forms, a question stirs. If life can grow into bodies, what else might it learn to do? Let's stay a while and listen. You drift now into stiller waters, into a time when the earth is just, Practicing, life, once single and silent, begins to think in shapes. You meet the first true animals, not predators, not prey, just sponges. They cling to rocks like quiet thoughts. They have no mouth, no brain, no bones, but they filter the sea. They live, they are. A quiet city of cells, each with a role, each in harmony. Nearby brown algae sway in leafy sheets, not quite plant, not quite animal, but alive in rhythm with the tide. They stretch toward light, anchor for balance, breathe in stillness. Then the jellies, transparent, weightless, pulsing softly in the twilight zone. They do not chase, they do not see, but they feel touch, pressure, temperature, the beginning of sensing. You float deeper, past stromatolites and sponge reefs, shapes like folded fans, clay pressed into seafloor fingers. No one hunts, no one runs, only gentle trials, quiet revisions. Every fold, every motion asks a question. Will this work? Some dissolve, some endure. This is not survival of the fittest. This is the arrival of the first dot. Not optimized, but enough. You follow a drifting creature, soft-bodied, no skeleton, no shell. It listens to the water without knowing how it glows faintly and floats. No brains, no hearts. But these beings rewrite the rules they prove. Form matters, cooperation works. Awareness can exist without thought. A sponge can't run, but it can regrow. A jelly can't plan, but it can respond. This is intelligence, not in ideas, but in adaptation. You breathe with the sea, in and out, like the sponges, like the tide. The world is still soft, still slow, but the seed of symmetry begins to stir. Soon, life will not just float, but move, and not long after that, seek. You float beside the first animals, their stillness cradling you. They pulse, they stretch, they sway, and from the deep, a question rises like a current. What if life could sense, not just survive? What if it could know? What if a nervous system were possible? Let's drift forward. The sea has been quiet, but now something stirs. Edges sharpen, tension rises, the water begins to hum, and then the Cambrian awakening. Not loud in sound, but loud in change. Evolution, no longer whispering, but roaring in silence. You drift through currents thick with transformation. Worms wriggle, trilobites scuttle like armored dancers. A flash, a predator darts past, eyes gleaming like liquid thought. Life begins to hunt. Eyes open, mouths widen, bodies stretch, symmetry sharpens, direction is born. Forward is invented. To see is to pursue, to plan, to survive. Light, once only warmth, becomes information. Muscles ripple, nerves fire, tentacles react. The ocean becomes an arena of response. An Omalocaris glides beside you, compound eyes scanning, grasping limbs poised. It doesn't merely exist, it acts. Prey dig deeper. Predators swim faster, shells harden, spines sprout. Fear becomes innovation. Hallucigenia stumbles by, a living riddle. Wewaxia sparkles with bristles. Feathered limbs sway. Mouths scrape, nibble, devour. You are floating through a gallery of invention, each form a question. Will this work? What caused the bloom? Oxygen, thick in the sea, genes shuffling faster, the hunger of predator and prey. No one knows, but the fire is lit. This isn't chaos. This is structure. Predators balance grazers. Grazers prune algae. Bacteria recycle the dead. The first ecosystems form, a living web in motion. One creature fails to flee. It is caught, consumed. But its death feeds life. The loop continues. Not cruel, not kind, just necessary. Your ancestors move here, cell by cell, pulse by pulse. Hearts are whispered into being. Limbs are imagined. Evolution becomes a performance. Each dancer, both hunter and hunted. Then you see it small, strange, a notochord running its length, a backbone's beginning. It swims. It doesn't know, but this one will lead to you. Most of what you see will vanish, but the pattern remains. And now, a new question stirs. What if life could do more than react? What if it could remember? Could thought awaken? Let's drift onward. The water's still, but the earth remembers. Beneath your drifting body, a diary lies pressed into stone. A moment frozen, yet breathing. This is the Burgess Shale, a vanished reef, a collapsed dream, a fossilized bloom of forgotten life. You float downward and the shale peels open like pages. Each layer a life, each shape a secret dot. First, Opabenia, 5 stalked eyes, a clawed hose where a face should be. A creature more question than answer, but it lived. It saw. It hunted then, hallucigenia, walking on spines, wearing confusion like armor. Even scientists had to flip it to understand. It was real, and it thrived. Nearby were Waxia, armored like a scale-covered cloud. Not quite a worm, not quite a mollusk. A breath from a world with different rules. This is not chaos. This is evolution without hindsight. No blueprint, no destination, only experiments in motion. Eyes behind heads, mouths underneath bellies, limbs sprouting in wild places, and yet each one worked. Each one found food. Each one fit the sea that cradled it. These creatures left no heirs, no dynasties, but they mattered. They pushed what life could be. You feel that freedom, the freedom to try without knowing, to be weird, to be beautiful, to exist, even briefly. The mud here captured more than shape. It held soft tissues, nerves, stomachs, behavior. That kind of detail is holy. A whisper that sings. A map across time. You pass Morella, shrimp-like, delicate. Its fan-like head crowned in silence. One of the most common fossils, yet still mysterious. How many creatures vanished without a trace? How many stories were washed away by time? Still, these pages remain. Stone that speaks, shale that remembers. They remind you, strangeness is not failure. Even forgotten things leave fingerprints. You exhale, a deep respect blooms in your chest, and then a ripple of thought. What if life could begin to notice? Not just others, but itself. What if awareness could awaken? Let's drift forward. You descend again, not into darkness, but into deep time. A time folded into stone and salt. A world ruled not by giants, but by patience, by trilobites. Shallow waters now ripple with sunlight. Warm tides stir plankton-rich currents. And on the seafloor, an empire crawls. No thrones, no war cries, just trilobites, segmented, armored, timeless, thousands of kinds, some barely visible, some as long as your hand, horned, spined, smooth, shaped by survival, all bearing the ancient geometry of life written in 3 perfect lobes. You float, unseen, above a reef. Trilobites, graze-scraping, burrowing, moving with purpose. Some are blind. Others carry crystal eyes, calcite lenses that saw the ocean before eyes were common at all. Each limb moves in rhythm. Each segment speaks of design, not brilliance, but endurance. They ruled longer than the dinosaurs. 300 million years, while continents shifted, seas rose and fell. Trilobites adapted, not in fury, but in quiet. They changed shape. They traveled deeper. Some huddled together, perhaps for safety, perhaps for nothing more than company. Even their moltings left trails, tiny footfalls stamped into ancient mud, a breadcrumb trail through evolution's long corridor. But nothing lives forever. Volcanoes stir, oceans sour, oxygen dips, and the great extinction begins. Not a scream, but a silence, a retreat, a final molt. The trilobites fade, and then vanish, yet they remain, pressed into shale, sleeping in limestone, glittering in drawers of museums and memories. The first to see, the first to segment, the first to endure, and in every jointed limb today, you can still hear them whispering from beneath the silt. And as the last trilobite curls in stone, another thought rises, soft, uncertain, like a ripple. Across tide-worn sand, what if life could crawl out of the water? Let's follow that thought. Let's move to shore. You feel a shift in the sea, not in temperature, not in tide, but in purpose. Something sleek moves ahead, not drifting, not grazing, but searching. This is the dawn of jaws. Before now, life fed passively, filtering, absorbing, but now, evolution sharpens its edge. A hinge, a snap, a bite, not just to eat, but to hunt, to hold, to choose. You float beside one of the first jawed fish, small, armored, gliding through the shallows like a thought made of metal. Its jaws open, close, not in violence, in rhythm, practice, intention. The ocean is no longer just a garden. It has become a game, and predators have entered the board. Evolution rushes. Fins sculpt purpose. Spines ripple with grace. Eyes sharpen. Skins harden. Cartilaginous fish, the ancestors of sharks, appear like poetry with teeth. Ray-finned fish flicker through coral-like flashes of future elegance. Every bite writes a new page in the book of life. Not everything keeps up. Soft-bodied creatures, once untouched, now vanish without a trace. Camouflage becomes survival. Speed becomes strategy. You hover in the middle of this new balance, a push and pull, of prey and predator. From jaws come decisions. From decisions, destinies. Fossils tell this story in silence, armored skulls, serrated teeth, ancient spines frozen mid-motion. The sea hums with strategy now. Every twitch, every shimmer means something, and you feel it, how a single bite changed everything. The lineage you follow here leads to so much more. To grinding molars, to bird beaks, to lips that will someday speak your name. One fish swims beside you. Its fins flare like silk. Its shadow dances with focus. It doesn't just move, it means. And somewhere inside the spine of this swimmer, a limb dreams of standing. A whisper stirs in the cartilage. What if we didn't just swim? What if we could walk? You descend again, deeper this time. The blues above turn to black. But even here, In silence and shadow, something stirs, something massive, something armored. Placoderms, the titans of ancient seas. You float among them, unseen, they move. Like stone dreams, thick-plated, fortress-faced, bony helmets, jaws like guillotines. They don't chew, they crush. One glides past, Dunkleosteus, a name etched in fossil, spoken in reverence, larger than a car, quieter than a whisper. It doesn't chase. It ends. Its jaws don't hold teeth, just sharpened bone, grinding like the planet's own machinery. One bite, that's all it needs. And then stillness, as if the ocean itself is catching its breath. Around it, smaller armored fish drift. In spirals, they don't wriggle, they pivot, slow and heavy. But within their plated bodies, soft life stirs, a beating heart, a blinking eye, a breath waiting to be taken. And when you look into that eye, dark, hollow, timeless, you wonder, does it know how little time it has left? Because the sea is changing. Reefs bloom like underwater cities. Predators grow swifter. Skeletons grow lighter. And reproduction becomes more than a gamble. It becomes strategy. Placoderms were power, but power without agility fades, slowly at first, then suddenly an extinction sweeps through like a tide pulling back. The armored age ends, but not in tragedy, in transformation, because the lesson left behind is simple. Strength is not survival. Adaptation is so you rise, gently. The bones settle behind you, silent, forgotten, holy, and above you. In the shallows, something begins to stir. Not jaws, not plates, but limbs. Because now the sea isn't just swimming forward, it's crawling toward land. You float through a sea that isn't exploding with change, but blooming with it. There is no chaos here, no conquest. Only a quiet unfolding. This is the Ordovician, a time when life doesn't rush forward, it dances. Trilobites still wander, but they're no longer the only ones. Below, brachiopods open like shells of thought, filtering stories from the currents. You drift past sea lilies, crinoids, not plants, but animals, rooted like meditations, swaying slowly, catching the drifting light. And then cephalopods, long-bodied, jet-propelled, eyes filled with calculation. They don't just move, they navigate. This is the second great radiation of life, not a burst. A bloom, shells spiral like galaxies. Reefs begin to whisper in limestone. Corals build not towers, but temples. A city beneath the sea, built by stillness. You pause. Tiny, jawless fish slip through coral shadows. They are soft, vulnerable, but alive. Sponges settle on stone. Algae paints in greens and golds. Even the smallest creatures feel intentional, like brushstrokes across a planetary canvas. You follow a single gastropod, its shell a spiral. Of memory, its trail, a shimmer of future. There is grace in this slowness, a calm intelligence, evolution choosing curves. Over corners, then a shift. Temperatures fall, ice takes the poles, the seas pull back. Extinction doesn't scream. It sighs. Life prunes itself. The bloom retreats, but not all is lost. In warm currents, in deep places, survivors wait. They don't panic. They don't resist. They endure. And when the world warms again, life returns, a little quieter, a little wiser. You rise from the coral forest, carrying the rhythm of recovery in your breath. Above you, light, and ahead, the shore. What happens when life dares to stand? Let's go see. You drift through a world. Slowing down, the warmth is leaving. The sea, once alive with blossoms in motion, now holds its breath. This isn't fire, it's frost. And extinction comes not with violence, but with quiet. The bloom of the Ordovician begins to fade. Continents shift south. Ice gathers at the poles. And slowly, life shivers. Reefs crumble. Trilobites scuttle for shelter that no longer exists. Crinoids curl inward. Brachiopods close their shells tight. No impact, no thunder, just time, turning colder. The nurseries of life, the shallow seas begin to dry. Oxygen slips away. The chorus of evolution dims to a whisper. But listen closely. Some things remain in the deep, in the still, in warm trenches and hidden caves. Survivors wait. Small, fragile, but unbroken. They know this is not the end. It's a reset. Glaciers pause. Seas rise. Light returns. And with it, life, not as it was, but as it could be. Reefs rebuild. Shapes evolve. Fewer, maybe, but more refined. Less noise. More nuance. You are not watching recovery. You are watching rebirth. Extinction clears the canvas, not to destroy, but to invite something new. A fish breathes slightly differently. A trilobite sees in a new direction. Small changes, big futures. There's something in the shallows now. A feeling, a pull. Life is inching toward land. You breathe with the earth. You float in its pores. And somewhere, just ahead, feet begin to dream of standing. Let's follow them. The water is warmer here. Brighter, tides breathe in and out like ancient lungs. And something waits. Life has wandered to the edge. And now, it wonders what lies beyond the waves. Some fish carry lungs now. Not perfect, but possible. There. Fins push against the mud, slipping, testing, leaning. You follow one. It doesn't know it's a pioneer. It's just chasing warmth, or maybe a dream. Its fins press forward. Its body wobbles. Its mouth opens, not for water, but for sky. These are the first steps. Clumsy, small, sacred. Amphibians don't appear with a flash. They emerge like questions. What if fins bent like elbows? What if breathing was choice, not chance? Gravity is new, weight is strange, but so is freedom. Lungs inhale a new kind of life. Eyes turn upward. The sea no longer defines the edge of the story. You drift beside an early tetrapod, Acanthostega, Ichthyostiga, ancient names, forgotten words, but their bodies remember the crossing. They carry two worlds within them, gills and lungs, water and earth, memory and momentum. And slowly, land begins to listen. Forests rise, ferns and lycopods, reaching without asking. Insects already wait beneath the leaves, as if they knew we'd come. The journey is not clean, not easy. Most fail, but some stay. They rest on warm rocks. They croak instead of gasp. They climb, however awkwardly, and with each attempt, life learns not just to leave the sea, but to belong beyond it. You feel it in your own bones, in the way your spine stretches, in the whisper of lungs that once were gills. This isn't conquest. It's invitation. The land offers no certainty, but it offers space. And life, stubborn, sacred life, says yes. You rise now with those early dreamers. You feel the weight of their hope. First steps, soft steps, still wet from the sea, but they matter, because from here, from mud and breath and sky, something new begins to rise. Not just to walk, but to stand. You awaken in a quieter world. The sea hums behind you now, distant, done with its shouting. Beneath your feet, the stone is softened, not by storm or lava, but by something gentler. Green dot, tiny mosses, liverworts. No flowers, no roots. Just fragile, living film. They cling to cracks. They sip sunlight. They breathe. This is not a conquest. This is an exhale. Photosynthesis steps onto land, slow, sacred. Every leaf is a whisper. Every patch of moss a new beginning. And then the ferns arrive. They unfurl like secrets, long coiled, elegant. They don't shout either. They stretch. Their spores float like prayers on the wind, and the wind listens. Soon, trees, but not the kind you know. Towering horsetails, lycopods, club mosses. Their bark is strange, their shapes unfamiliar. But they rise, and in rising, they lift the sky. With them, roots take hold. Soil thickens, rain falls, and for the first time, something holds the land together. Insects rejoice. Millipedes, the size of rulers. Wings skimming through the shade. The air thickens with oxygen, and breath becomes easier. The earth begins to hum. Underfoot, fungi and bacteria begin their quiet work. Life feeds death. Death feeds life. The forest learns how to recycle memory. You lie beneath a tree that remembers nothing, but somehow knows. Everything, light breaks through in fragments, not harsh, but soft. You breathe, and the breath is familiar. This is not yet a forest, but it is dreaming of one dot, and all around you, the land begins to listen, not just to water, but to wind, to root, to rhythm. The green does not rush, it does not conquer, it simply stays, and in staying, it changes everything. You rise, you walk, among towering plants older than imagination, and then you wonder if plants could rise, could animals follow? If the air is now rich enough for breath, is it rich enough to fly? You are standing in a cathedral of trees. The air is rich, thick with breath, damp with memory. Around you rise green towers, lycopods, as tall as buildings, their hollow trunks lit with sunlight. This isn't just a forest, it's the Carboniferous, and it overflows. You breathe, and the world breathes back. Oxygen hangs like a fog, generous, heady. It fills lungs, fuels life, even grows monsters above. A dragonfly glides wings the size of dinner plates, silent and smooth. Below, millipedes stretch like living trains across the roots. Everything is large, because everything is alive. The ground beneath your feet, it's not just dirt, it's time. Layer upon layer of ancient rot, pressed into peat, waiting to become coal, a gift to the far future. A threat to the forest is loud with silence. No birds, no flowers, just insects humming like violins, ferns whispering secrets, and mushrooms blooming on the backs of the dead. You pause at a clearing. Sunlight spills like honey, and you feel it, not just warmth, but warning, because when air holds this much oxygen, fire is always listening, and fire comes, not often, but when it does, it devours. Trees snap, smoke rises, and yet life grows again. Some seeds only sprout after flame. Some roots wait patiently beneath the ash. Even destruction is part of the plan. You drift deeper in pools. Amphibians slide between shadows, massive, slow, watching. They rule for now, but their grip is soft. Evolution is sculpting something leaner, stronger, hungrier. The lungs expand. The legs stiffen. The earth whispers, "Go farther." You sit on a mossy log, the air still too full, and you realize this forest doesn't just grow, it stores, it remembers. A golden age, yes, but no age lasts forever. Swamps will dry, oxygen will fade, the giants will fall, and from their shadows, something lighter will rise. You turn your gaze upward, past the fronds, past the canopy, into the soft sky. Something stirs there, quiet, small, delicate, a feather, and you wonder, if once we crawled, might we soon fly? You wake to the scent of ash, not campfire, not warmth, but scorched earth. The trees are burned to memory. The sky hangs low, bruised with smoke. You stand on a planet in pain. Volcanoes rupture across the land. In Siberia, they erupt for centuries, not a blast, a bleeding. Lava pours like time undone. With it comes poison carbon, methane, sulfur. The air turns cruel. The seas warm, oceans falter. Life gasps. You drift through dying coral reefs. Now pale ghosts, trilobites vanish. Oxygen flees. The great dying has begun. This is extinction not as drama, but as unraveling. A slow suffocation of ecosystems. A hush too deep for grief, yet something remains in the cracks. Survivors, worms, ferns, burrowing reptiles, not mighty, but steady. You crouch beside a single sprout, green against all odds. It does not bloom, it breathes. Below, microbes thrive in boiling pools, in sulfur, pits, in the furnace of extinction. Because life remembers fire. It began there once. The lava cools. Skies begin to clear. Rains return, soft at first. Carbon berries. Oxygen whispers, from silence, a new rhythm. You spot the first reptiles, cautious. They stretch in the sunlight like new thoughts. They will become more dot. Not yet thunder lizards, not yet rulers, but the spark is there. The earth does not mourn. It rebuilds, and you still watching feel it shift. This isn't a tomb, it's a page turning. You stand on ash, and in the wind you hear it. Wings, not yet dragons, but close. What's coming is not gentle, but it will shake the sky. The forest still remembers fire. The air still hums with absence. But in the silence that follows extinction, life begins again. You walk through dry lands. The sun hangs heavy. Reptiles, low to the ground, blink slow in the heat. Their scales shimmer not in pride, but survival. They did not rise from power. They rose from persistence. Step by step, they claim the earth. Claws grip stone. Lungs pull dry air. Eggs rest on land, safe from water's whims. But some turn back. The sea calls. You follow one. It stumbles at the shore. Salt kisses its skin. Old instincts stir. Fins remember. Time passes. Toes flatten. Bodies stretch. Lungs stay. But gills are gone. And from the waves, the ICHTHYOSAUR. It glides, sleek as thought. It does not crawl, it flies through water. A reptile in dolphin's clothes. It breathes air, It births live young. It knows the sea, yet carries land in its blood. Then come the plesiosaurs, long necks, wide eyes, flippers that row through silence. They don't chase, they wait. When they strike, it's poetry. Then the mosasaurs, monsters of muscle and hunger. They don't whisper, they rule. The sea is reptilian now, not from memory but from choice. Because evolution is not a straight path. It loops, it revisits, it dares to go back and try again, differently. You rise through ancient water. Above, continents shift. Below, coral blooms again. The sea becomes a cradle once more. You touch a cliff made from time. Fossils curve beneath your hand like old songs. Bones shaped by tides. Stories written in calcium, and on land. Reptiles rise too. Some walk tall. Some grow feathers. Some are waiting for thunder. But in this chapter, the ocean belongs to them. Every shape, every scale, from darting hunters to leviathans of the deep, they surface to breathe. They dive to dream. You float beside a plesiosaur, its eye meeting. Yours calm, timeless. It remembers land. It chooses water, and you ask, how many times has life returned to the sea? How many endings led back to blue? You drift upward. Forests murmur. Insects buzz. But on one branch, far above the waves, another kind of dream takes shape. Not fins, not claws, but wings. You exhale, and the air lingers. Cold settles, not with violence, but with grace, like breath fogging glass, like time slowing down. This is not a winter. This is an age. You stand on the edge of a continent that forgets how to be warm. Ice begins to gather, soft and sure, not falling, arriving. Inches become miles. Frost becomes mountain. The glaciers come, not with rage, with resolve. They do not hurry. They simply do not stop. They press, they carve, they remember. Beneath their weight, valleys bow, forests vanish, rivers forget their names. Life changes shape. You walk beside a woolly mammoth. Its coat is thick, with the patience of centuries. Its breath clouds like storm smoke. It walks not to conquer, but to endure. In caves, shadows flicker. Hands leave prints in ochre and fire. The first stories are whispered, not spoken, not written in ink, but in instinct. Outside, a frozen silence. Inside, the birth of culture. Glaciers pulse with the rhythm of the planet. They come, they go, tilt, orbit, distance, the quiet math of the cosmos. And every time the ice retreats, life rushes back like breath after drowning. You kneel beside a meltwater stream. It sings, not loudly, but clearly, a song of return, a song of resilience. The great animals roam, giant sloths, saber-toothed cats, mammoths. Their world is heavy with life, but not forever, because ice makes room, then takes it away. Species vanish, not because they were weak, but because the world turned too fast. Yet one species holds on, by fire, by tool, by idea. You sit at a hearth, not yours, but familiar, a circle of humans, laughing, listening, dreaming. Their faces glow with something new, memory and meaning. The glaciers groan behind them, but they do not look back. They look forward, and the earth, long shaped by ice and ash, feels a new sculptor's touch, one that stands upright, one that maps stars, one that makes stories. You rise, the cold wind brushes your face, but beneath, it warmth, not of air, but of thought, because now, for the first time in history, life does not wait for the world to change. It starts to change the world. You wake in warmth, not the flicker of fire, but the steady kiss of sun on skin. The ice has gone. The world breathes easier now, and with it, so do you. The wild remains, but something deeper takes root. You step into soil rich with memory. No longer nomad, you find rhythm in place. Stones stack into shelter, seeds sink into earth, and the earth responds. You sit beside a planter, not a warrior, but a dreamer. Hands press hope into furrows. Wheat will come, and time will follow. This is the Neolithic, and it begins not with noise, but with waiting. Around you reed huts, clay pots, stone tools, polished by intent. Goats bleat softly by the fence. Children chase sun between olive trees. The world has been claimed, not with conquest, but with care. Tools sharpen, stories stretch. Fire warms not just bodies, but memory. Language no longer warns, it weaves. Lullabies, trade, prayer, the mouth becomes a vessel for the past. You pass a child pressing their hand into clay. The print will dry and stay, like a name, like a story. Above you, someone points at the stars, not to fear them, but to name them. The sky becomes a clock, the land becomes a calendar, the heart becomes a compass, and still the world unfolds. You pass rings of stone, carved figurines, burial mounds laced with reverence. Life now worships life. Art no longer imitates, it imagines, but not all is peace. You find burn marks, blade scars. Power has found new soil, and in it the roots of empire. Yet still you walk, you sit again by fire. But this time the glow is not protection, it is invitation. Around you, stories of what was, what is, and what might be. A mind has awakened. It shapes tools, and time, and meaning. You've come far from stardust, to cell, to song. And now the story changes. This is not the end. This is the beginning of history. And like every beginning, it asks the oldest question: what comes next?